Hello YouTube divers, this is WaterDive122 and today I want to welcome you all to a brand new section for my Magic Metal Mondays saga, Albums of the Year. This will be a 4-part mini-series where I talk about my favorite albums from each year, from 1970 to the year of my birth, 2005. So this, and the main rule here, it can only be rock and metal albums, but there will be duplicates. So there's that. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Coming in for 1970 is Black Sabbath's very own Paranoid. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of you were going to think that I was going to pick the Black Sabbath debut, but no, it's Paranoid that takes the 1970 spot. Mainly because it is more of an important Black Sabbath album to me, because for one thing, this was the album that turned me on to Black Sabbath. And plus, I'm not a huge fan. I'm not really a big fan of the self-titled debut album. On my Black Sabbath album ranking, I ranked the debut album at number 9. Good album, but Paranoid just knocks it out of the freaking park in my mind with the title track, Iron Man, and War Pigs. 3 iconic Black Sabbath songs, and the title track for Paranoid is probably my favorite Black Sabbath song. It was the first song that I was exposed to by Sabbath, so there's that. For that reason, Paranoid by Black Sabbath takes the 1970 spot for me. So let's move on to 1971. For 1971, we have Led Zeppelin 4 by Led Zeppelin. Now, this album had its fair share of competition with 2 Yes albums and a Black Sabbath album, Master of Reality by Black Sabbath, and the Yes album, and Fragile, both of them were by Yes. But this album takes the 1971 spot, mainly because it is my 7th favorite album of all time. And it's pretty much a freaking perfect album. It has Black Dog, Rock and Roll, Battle Forevermore, Stairway to Heaven, Misty Mountain Hop, I think Ramble On, or Four Sticks. Yeah, Four Sticks is off of this album. Going to California and When the Levee Breaks. That's basically all the songs that are on this album. All of them are great in my opinion. This is one of those albums that is just perfect. It's freaking perfect. So, let's move on to 1972. 1972! Close to the Edge by Yes. Now, these next couple of album spots, we are going to be talking about Yes albums. Close to the Edge, top 5 album by Yes. I put this one number 4 in my Yes album rankings, mainly because I do think that there are 3 other albums that are better than Close to the Edge, but this is still a freaking masterpiece. I mean, the title track alone is just freaking amazing. I love And You and I love Siberian Khatru. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I could be wrong. But this album, but there is not a bad moment on this album. And this was the final album to feature Bill Bruford before he left the band to join King Crimson. But what a way to friggin' go out, am I right? I love the keyboard work by Rick Wakeman on this. I love John Anderson's vocals. I love Chris Squire's bass, and I love Steve Howe's amazing guitar on this album. But Close to the Edge is a gorgeous album, and it takes the 1972 spot ahead of albums like Volume 4 by Black Sabbath and Machine Head by Deep Purple. So, with that said, let's move on to 1973. 1973, Tales from Topographic Oceans by Yes. This is a wonderful album. It is, of course, my go-to Yes album. This is a double album, and with 4 songs, each of them taking up a side of the album, but it pays off amazingly. This is my favorite Yes album, and this is my favorite album from 1973, ahead of albums like Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath by Black Sabbath. But Tales from Topographic Oceans is a wonderful, wonderful album. Steve Howe is at his best on guitar on this album, in my opinion. John Anderson is at his best vocal performances. The harmonies on this album are amazing. This was the first Yes album to feature Alan White on the drums. He freaking smokes it. Rick Wakeman also does a great job, especially on my favorite Yes song and my favorite early 70s progressive rock epic. Excuse me. Revealing Signs of God, Dance of the Dawn, which is side one of this masterpiece. But all the other songs on this album, the Remembering, the Ancient, and Ritual, freaking amazing. And to top it all off with Revealing Signs of God, you got yourself a classic double album. And I feel like that this album doesn't really get a lot of love by hardcore Yes fans. They usually tend to overlook this album because it's so freaking long, and it is long, but the crushing length of this album pays off immensely, in my opinion. So, if you want more information about Tales from Topographic Oceans, I talk about it in both my Yes album rankings and my top 10 favorite albums video. You can check that out if you want to. So, that said, Tales from Topographic Oceans takes the 1973 spot. Let's move on. 1974, Relayer, also by Yes. From everything to the amazing album artwork by Roger Dean, to the immense technical musicianship, this album is amazing. Now, it's not as amazing as Tales from Topographic Oceans, and but it's better, in my opinion, than Closer to the Edge. I put this album at number 3 on my Yes album rankings. It freaking smokes. The Gates of Delirium on side 1 is freaking amazing. It's up there with some of my favorite progressive epics before Rush, and even in the Rush era. It's freaking up there. I love that song. Sound Chaser is also really good, and as a metalhead, I love how chaotic it is. I love chaos, and I love chaotic moments on on songs. And Sound Chaser definitely has them. And To Be Over is, in my opinion, one of Yes's most underrated songs. It's a wonderful track. This was the first and the only album to feature keyboardist Patrick Moraz. He does an amazing job on this album, and I wish he stuck with Yes a little bit longer. Maybe feature him on albums like maybe Union or Big Generator or things like that. Or maybe even Tornado. So, Relayer takes the 1974 spot. The 1975 spot goes to Caress of Steel by Rush. Now, before I get any of those comments that are saying, oh, why is Caress of Steel here in 1975? This is a joke, right? Well, it's not a joke. Caress of Steel is one of those Rush albums where I have memories of. Now, I was not alive in 1975, but this was one of the first Rush albums I was really exposed to. I got this album for Christmas in 2013, and this album basically sounds like Fly By Night production-wise. But for me, in both my Rush album rankings and here, it's slightly above Fly By Night, mainly because I love all the songs that are on this album, whereas with Fly By Night, I love all the songs. I love all but one song on that album. Sabotage was also up there. Sabotage by Black Sabbath. But for me, Caress of Steel takes the 1975 spot because I love all those songs. I love Bastille Day. Lakeside Park is amazing. I love the two epics, The Necromancer and The Fountain of Lamneth. And it basically lays the foundation to what Rush is going to do in their later albums that we're going to get to. And yeah, I think I'm going bald. Yeah, I think it's poppy, and yeah, I think the lyrics are a little bit cheesy, according to Neil Peart standards. But it freaking does not let up. I love pretty much all these songs. There is not a dull moment on this album, in my opinion. So, Caress of Steel, its biggest competitors were Fly By Night, also by Rush, and Sabotage by Black Sabbath. All of them are freaking amazing. But Caress of Steel takes the 1975 spot. So let's see what the 1976 spot goes to. The 1976 spot goes to 2112 by Rush. Now these next couple of albums are going to be from Rush, so just know that. So 2112 is my second favorite Rush album of all time. And it has one of my top 5 all-time favorite songs from them. And it's of course the only song that's on side 1, 2112. It's one of my favorite progressive rock epics, period. I absolutely love that song, and I love that story. If you ever want to listen to a Rush song, make sure you have the freaking lyrics in front of you, because those lyrics are just freaking amazing. And side 2 has also got some pretty good songs. Passage to Bangkok is one of my favorites. Lessons is a great motivational type of song. Tears is a beautiful ballad written by Geddy Lee. Something for Nothing is also a great closure. Twilight Zone I don't really care that much about, as I said in my Rush album rankings. But Twilight Zone is a pretty good song in my opinion. And if you like the 1950s show The Twilight Zone, I guarantee you might have a soft spot for that song. It's freaking amazing. So, with that all being said, 1976 goes to 2112. 1977, Farewell to Kings by Rush. Yep. This is another one of those albums where you look at it and you listen to it and it's freaking amazing and you just want to go back and play it over and over and over and over and over again. It's that kind of album. Oh, and I forgot to mention on 2112, its biggest competitor was Destroyer by Kiss. Great album. Let's see. Okay, so the biggest competitor for Farewell to Kings was either Going for the One by Yes or Animals by Pink Floyd. Two iconic progressive rock albums. But for me, it's Farewell to Kings by Rush that takes this spot. I love the opening track, the title track, Xanadu, freaking killer. I love those double neck guitars. Closer to the Heart, beautiful ballad, power ballad or whatever. Now we go to side 2. Cinderella Man's okay. I love the bass lines on that song. Madrigal is this kind of little cheesy love ballad that kind of sets up for what bands in the 80s would do-ish. But it's proggy. And of course, the Cygnus X1, Book 1, The Voyage. Freaking amazing. It sets up beautifully for the next album that we're going to be talking about. So let's talk about it. 1978, Hemispheres by Rush. Again, this is not only my favorite Rush album, nor just my favorite album from 1978. This is my favorite album, period. This album is a perfect album. If you really want a perfect album, go listen to Hemispheres. Hemispheres is a flawless album. No other album from anyone can top this record. It's a beautiful piece of literature. The side 1 is. I love side one. It might even be my favorite Rush song. My favorite Rush songs kind of interchange a little bit from time to time. Just depends on how I'm feeling. But Cygnus X1 Book 2, Hemispheres, great song. I love Circumstances, and I love The Trees, and I freaking love La Via Strangiato. It's my favorite instrumental of all time, and it's probably the greatest instrumental ever to be recorded. And who knows? But with that all being said, Hemispheres coming in, taking the 1978 gold medal, if you will. So let's move on to 1979. 1979, The Wall by Pink Floyd. Now, like Tales from Topographic Oceans, this is a double album. But unlike Tales from Topographic Oceans, this album has a lot of tracks. 26. That is a lot of songs. But there are such great songs on this album. Hey You, Mother, Comfortably Numb, and Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. And I will say it, Another Brick in the Wall is my favorite Pink Floyd song. It's a really great song, and it was the first Pink Floyd song I was really exposed to. This is a concept album. One of my favorite concept albums. And I'm not a really big Pink Floyd fan. This easily takes the 1979 spot. Its biggest competitor was Dynasty by Kiss. Specifically for the song, I was made for loving you, baby. But this album blows it out of the freaking water. It's a perfect album. Well, it's a flawless album. It's not really that perfect, but it's a freaking amazing album. So The Wall by Pink Floyd comes here for 1979. And that will conclude part 1 of this 4-part series of albums of the year. So, thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is Water Dive 122 signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thanks for watching.